Welcome to episode number 335 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for all of you marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. You can find us by searching for Beyond Social Media Show. We are recording on January 23rd, 2021. This year, we are alternating between our usual format and doing interviews. So this year, we're going to start doing interviews as well. And to kick off the year, we are interviewing each other. BL has already interviewed me, and this week I am going to interview BL, and then we'll get on to other people who aren't BL or I. But to kick off the year, that's what we're going to do. So thank you, BL, for taking the time out for this interview. I'm happy to have you on my show.
What fun. Yeah.
So
after all these years, we've never met in person.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. My first question to you,
and I assume you have legs, right?
I do have legs, yeah. Yeah, my first question to you, BL, I think the question that all of America wants to know is, what does BL stand for?
It stands for a nickname that I have had since I was a baby. And unless you are going to send me a very large check, I am not going to tell you what it stands for.
Okay, that's interesting. Let's pursue this this line of inquiry. So it does stand for, it's an acronym for something, correct?
Initials.
Initials, yes. Okay. What is your name then?
You don't care how many ways you ask me, I'm still not telling you.
Okay. Well, that's it is.
I file taxes as BL Ochman. Okay, that's all you need to know.
Interesting. So, what is the if it's a nickname that you've adopted, but you're not going to tell anybody, so it appears that you don't like the nickname. So, it begs the question: why have you adopted the nickname?
I love the nickname. What I don't like is what it stands for.
Oh, okay. And you do use, so it's BL with a period, B period, L period, Ochman?
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I've exhausted my line of inquiry on there. You're obviously not going to budge, so that will remain a mystery. Tell me, so you went to school for, you got a degree in journalism, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so why did you decide to major in journalism or study journalism?
Well, ever since I was a little girl, when Nancy Drew was my hero, I wanted to be able to find the answers to mysteries, and I always wanted to write. And I just knew that Lois Lane was my other childhood heroine. And I just knew that when I grew up, I was going to be just like Lois Lane. And I was the editor of the newspaper in high school. I was the editor of the paper in college as well. And journalism seemed like the right fit for me. And it was a wonderful program that I was in.
Very cool. So after you graduated from college, you had a BA in journalism. Where'd you go from there?
Well, my first journalism job was at the Fairfield Citizen, where my job was to report on things like kitchen fires and bowling leagues and things like that. And so that was kind of boring. And I tried to get jobs in journalism, but it was a different time. And I will never forget the editor of the New Haven Register, who said to me, "Honey, how could I send you out at night into a bad neighborhood to cover a story and be able to sleep when you're wearing that little skirt?" And I said, "Well, isn't that my problem?" And he said, "No, it would be mine." So that was sort of the culmination of multiple interviews at that point in time. And so I took another turn and I worked for a PR firm in Westport, where I became the harmonica fairy, because we had Hohner instruments as one of our accounts. And my job, the best job in the world for a kid who just got out of college, was to go to concerts and talk to people like Stevie Wonder and Bob Dylan and Paul Butterfield and hang out backstage with them and give them harmonicas and ask them to be in our advertising. So I did that for a while. That was fun.
So that was your first PR job out of college?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And our other client was Stew Leonard. And Stew Leonard had just opened his first store.
So
And
stop for a second. What is Stew Leonard?
Stew Leonard is um, the eponymous grocery store owner. Stew Leonard's now has 9 stores and some liquor stores, and he had just opened his first store. He had been my boss's milkman, and a highway ran through his dairy, so he decided to open a store that sold all the same things he had on his milk truck. And then people would say, why don't you get this and why don't you get that? And so he would listen to his customers and he would do that. And my job was to go there on Saturday morning, no matter what shape I was in. And sometimes it was intense the night before, and go around with a photographer and ask people, why are you here? And they would tell us, I came for the bread, I came for this, I came for that. And we found out what people liked. And when I spoke to those people and they gave me an answer, we took a picture, those ran as ads in the Westport News. And I did that for a long time.
So it's a consumer generated content play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me more about the Hohner work. So you literally went to concerts, and how did you find how did you get yourself in front of the musicians?
Well, for the most part, many of them came to us because we would fix their harmonicas. What you need to know about harmonicas is that perfect pitch is something that is inherited. And so the people who were the harmonica tuners in the Trossingen, Germany forest town that Hohner was originated in, they could fix the harmonicas because they go out of tune after a while. So musicians would come out to us, and I would just, I don't know, I just always managed to do it. And I was on stage with John Mayall one time with this giant harmonica. I held a harmonica festival, the first annual harmonica brouhaha at South Street Seaport, and we had like a harmonica band with 46 harmonicas.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
It was all these old people, and they had these kind of harmonicas that like have 4 harmonicas on a stick, so they're different keys, and they played amazing what they played. And we had Blackie Schackner who played classical music. I mean, it was amazing.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's an awesome gig.
It was so
Especially
much fun.
coming at your first gig coming out of college to be able to do
Yep,
that.
it was.
Amazing.
It
So
was fun. I did it for a long time, and then I decided I had to go to New York and, look at bigger vistas.
so where was this then? Where if it was New York, where was this?
Well, initially I was in Westport, and then Leo Miller, who I work for, died, and Hohner said, come work with us. So I went out to Long Island where they were, and lived there for 6 miserable months until I realized I could not possibly stay there. But I moved to the city, and I kept working for them. But then I went to work for Reuter and Finn.
So you actually got hired by Hohner, the company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't just go to concerts, Dave. I went to festivals. And when everybody was like camping in the mud, I was in hotel rooms with my husband, or sometimes with a friend. And I say to them, well, you don't want me to be all by myself, do you? And they, oh no, bring a friend. And, so, and I got braver and braver, these are after work, I need to eat dinner. And so my friend and I, or my husband and I, could eat dinner, and we had so much fun.
That's awesome. So you went to Hohner, then you went to another PR shop. Is that correct?
I went to Reuter and Finn and worked for their design person, who was Neil Fujita, a very famous designer. He designed the logo for NBC, the peacock.
Oh, wow.
And things you see every day are designs that came from Neil Fujita. And basically, I wrote proposals there.
So proposals for what?
Well, for the Reuter and Finn people, because at that time, I don't know if it's still the same in PR firms, but the PR people didn't really write. So I was a writer. There were 2 full-time writers, me and one other person, and we did basically the writing. We wrote the press releases, we wrote the proposals, we wrote the programs, and so we worked with the account people, and that's what I did.
So I'm sorry, by proposals, are you like pitches to prospective
Pitches, yeah.
clients? Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. So it's like in response to an RFP, is that what I'm hearing?
I guess they were, but I don't recall them being done that way.
But you got fairly early experience with new business
I
development,
sure
kind of.
did.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I sure did.
what did was there anything from that early experience that has carried on to that, a truism or a lesson that has carried on to this day in terms of new business?
Good question. For me, that you can't just recycle your old ideas, which is what happens in big agencies, that, and you can't just take a group of people, and I've had this experience more than once in big agencies, you can't just take a group of people who know nothing about something and have them brainstorm about whatever, and then recycle what they did the last time. So I never do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good
I'm
call.
sure you don't either.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, all right. So then, where'd you go from there?
From there, I went to a small agency that did publicity for PBS programming, and I got to do the PR for the Carl Sagan shows and for the Metropolitan Museum shows. And I also got to do one that I, to this day, I'm so grateful I got to do, which was working with Daniel Barenboim, Pitzak Zuckerman, Pincus Zuckerman, and Jacqueline Dupre. And this was after she was no longer able to play the cello. And I'll remember always her interview. I said, how is it for you not being able to play the cello? And she said, I play in my head.
Oh, wow, wow.
Yeah.
So, you see, there's a theme developing here. There's an entertainment theme developing here, BL, like that I can tell. So you did publicity for Carl Sagan's Cosmos TV shows.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So what did that involve? That's fascinating.
Well, we were letting the TV reviewers, who there used to be, TV columns in every paper. We were letting the TV reviewers see the videos beforehand and setting up the interviews, writing the press kits, all of that. And I did the Tutankhamun one at the Metropolitan Museum, which at that time was the biggest ever exhibit, where people had to buy a ticket and wait in line. And well, I don't think you bought it, but you waited in line, and you got like your 20 minutes to see the exhibit, which is how all the big exhibits are now. So we had clients like Atlantic Richfield, I don't know what they're called now, big oil companies and things like that, that underwrote the PBS programming.
That's fascinating. I remember the Tutankhamun exhibit was a big deal, and I was completely fascinated by it. And then
Traveled.
That's what I was just gonna say. It did a tour, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
And went all over the country. And I left there and started my own firm. And one day,
I'm sorry. How old were you when you started your firm?
how old was I? Probably 35.
And why did you decide to start your firm?
Well, I kind of looked at my boss and I thought he could do it. I could do it.
There you go. Did you bring clients with you, or did you start from scratch?
No, I did not. I did not. I started from scratch, and my first client was a psychiatrist from Toronto, and he had an exhibit that we called See and Tell, and this was at the Nikon Gallery in Rockefeller Center, and he had been doing these abstract photographs and then hanging them up in his office. This was pre Photoshop. He was doing these abstracts in the camera, and he would put them up in his office. And he found that people started to talk about things that they wouldn't normally talk about in response to the photos. So in this Nikon Gallery exhibit, we had two boxes. One said, take it, the other said, leave it. And in the take it box, it said, please give us your thoughts and feelings about this image. And then I can't remember his name. And then Dr. Joel will analyze the responses from New York City. And so thousands of people came in and did that. And then and we had so much press coverage. We got Popular Photography, we got the Times, we got TV, we got because it was such a fun thing.
Yeah.
And it traveled, it went around the country. And he even did it with blind people. And I mean, he did some really fascinating things. He gave cameras to autistic people. And now Joel Walker. And now these images are called the Walker images, and they are used in psychiatry in place of the traditional ones.
Oh, fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah, yeah.
So how did you,
And then
how did you get that? I mean, how did you obtain that business? That's an incredible story.
a friend sent him to me.
Well.
Is a guy I had worked with previously sent him to me, said she's perfect for you. And then lo and behold, Stew Leonard calls me up and he says, are you ready to help me? And I said, you bet I am. And I began to do his publicity. And the first article I got for him was the New York Times. And in it, the place was called the Disneyland of Dairy Stores. And that kind of set off a tsunami of press and people from all over the world coming to see the place. Tom Peters wrote about it in his book. And Stew Leonard said about me, you better watch what you ask for with BL because she will do it.
That's incredible. I mean, that's kind of over delivering.
Totally.
How do you set expectations after that? I mean,
you know what? It just kept growing. I mean, we were just such a great team. And, then his son Stu, who runs the business now, came into it. And, we just kept doing bigger and better things. And, he's such a natural. Both of them are such naturals as communicators. And, every interview they did, the reporters loved. And around that same time, I started, this started as a joke. Like I used to write complaint letters for my friends because we found that when it started in college, actually, like one time we were studying for finals and we bought this big box of Tootsie Roll Pops and they didn't have any Tootsies in the middle. And so I wrote a letter and said, how are we supposed to study for our exams if we don't have Tootsies in our Pops? And lo and behold comes these cartons of Tootsie Roll Pops. I said, this is interesting. So I did this, for lots of hairspray, cigarettes, all kinds of things. And then I was having lunch with a friend one day and she said, this is a business. I said, what am I going to call it? Rent-a-kvetch? And for those who don't know, kvetch is a Yiddish word for a complainer. She said, that's it. Don't forget that. So for a joke, I sent out a press release to two reporters who were friends. And on a Sunday morning, an article appeared, much to my surprise, in the New York Daily News and in the San Francisco Chronicle. And then my bell started ringing and my phone started ringing. And I remember I called my dad and I said, what should I do? There are reporters here. I have nothing to say. He said, just fake it. So I just went on and talked, because I like to talk. And I did more than 300 interviews. I was on Oprah, I was on Today, I was on Good Morning America. I was flown around. I was doing interviews in Australia in the middle of the night. Never made any money, but I had so much fun. And that was pre-internet. Had that been internet, you'd be sitting here talking to me in my millions of dollars,
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I once registered the domain annoyedcustomer.com after getting really pissed off at Blockbuster. Good riddance, Blockbuster. But yeah, there's definitely
well, we had a funny logo, like a picture of me, a cartoon of me being angry with steam coming out my head, and then I would write it and say they wouldn't know what to make of it. Unfortunately, I'm writing to you on behalf of, David Erickson, who got a video that didn't work at Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And most unfortunately, if you don't do something about this in 10 days, I am going to, take this to the next level. And I'd write to the president because that's who has nothing to do anyway. And, and we got answers. We got lots and lots of answers. And I I charged $50 a letter. And
Wow.
I'd have to do all this research, and they weren't form letters. They were all.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Getting back to your Stew Leonard, that you were saying he is a natural, natural interviewer or natural communicator. Did you do any like media training with him, or was he just like good out of the box?
Seriously, he was good out of the box, but there were some times when I would say, don't talk about this, don't talk about that. But he was just perfect. I
So
mean,
I mean, you've certainly had experiences with people who are the opposite of that, not good communicators, that you have to
oh, yeah.
coach and do media training and everything. And then you had the experience with him who's a natural. What are the hallmarks of what makes a client a good client in that respect, do you think?
Well, it's really important to be a good listener. And it's really important to be able to answer concisely, which I don't think I have done so far in this interview. And it's really important to be upbeat, I think, and to smile and just to not look like you're scared. To just feel like when you do the interview that it's going to be a good thing. I did have to tell people, and I'm sure you have too, how to answer questions like, did you stop beating your wife, things like that. But but I mean, many of the people that I've worked with have been really clever and good at media stuff.
Okay, cool. All right. So you had your kvetch, rent a kvetch. Do you still have the logo for that?
I do. It's fun. I'll
All
send
right.
it to
Well,
you.
you'll definitely have to share that
Yeah.
in the show notes. That's great.
Yeah.
So what else? Where are we at in time?
Well, from there, at that point, I was working alone, and then I had enough clients where I needed to have an office and start to hire other people. And I grew the PR firm into a 6-person firm. We had Miracle Grow, we had Stew Leonard's, we had a large Japanese company. We had some really major clients, American Dairy Association. And all, things went great, and our clients stayed with us for years and years. And then in 1995, I started looking at the internet, and I started wanting to be there. And at that time, you could call up anybody and you could say, can I come learn from you? Can I come see what you're doing? Will you teach me? And they would. And so you could talk to anyone. And I just started to do that. And then I started to write about what I thought the internet was going to mean for marketing. And at that time, there were publications like Internet Day and so on, and they were paying you $150 a word. You could do quite well just writing.
Now,
And
better than Dickens, that's for damn sure.
yeah, well, now if you get 10 cents a word, you're lucky. But all of those publications ultimately went out of business in the first crash.
Probably for paying their writers $1.50 a word.
But yeah, that was like the burn rate. But then IBM called me and Ford called me, and big companies started calling and said, what is this internet thing? And I would come and talk to them about what I thought. And in 2000 I started blogging, and so
before we get into further down the line, what sparked the interest in the internet?
Because I could see what a large audience you would be able to reach essentially on your own terms, that you would be able for the first time ever to say anything you wanted people to know about your company and give them access to who you were and what you did, and also give them access to you. It was a way to humanize the companies. And at the beginning, it was basically a way to have fun. I mean, the first website I did, that's Lucy, my puppy. The first website I did was for men hair color. And it was when Bill Clinton was running for president. Who did he run against, Dave?
Well, he ran against Perot. No, that was the
before
first time.
the guy who did the
Robert Dole.
erection. Yeah, he was running against Dole. And so we had these guys who created a poll. What color hair do you like on the candidates? And it was online, and we got thousands of people responding, and they liked Dole with brown hair, and they liked Clinton with gray hair, which I thought was the way he looked the best anyway. But
Yeah.
we got picked up by the Wall Street Journal. I mean, this was something new. Nobody was
Yeah.
doing stuff
Yeah.
like this. And, this just turned me on so much that this kind of thing was possible. It was so crude at that point. I mean,
Yeah, well, we still had, I mean, that was back still, AOL was still fairly dominant.
yeah,
Netscape had just come out with their
Netscape,
browser,
right.
and
Yeah.
Yahoo was the search engine, and email was, email was the
Email
dominant
was
form of
new.
communication too. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was
Not
new.
everybody had email. Nope.
Right, right. And then, blogs came along, and I had published a print newsletter before I began to blog, and it was called What's Next. And I had sold that for $350 a year subscriptions, and the internet made that impossible,
Yeah.
although I think some people are back to trying to do that. And so I just was like, oh, wow, a bigger audience. And I kept on publishing it. I did it for quite a long time.
Well, I mean, you still have that site. What's next blog?
I have that site, but I don't keep up the newsletter as
Yeah.
much. I used to do it, really seriously. But yes, I do have What's Next blog.
And you write for Ad Age. So how did that come
I
about?
did write for Ad Age. At that time, well, it wasn't for pay, it was for glory. And they had some wonderful editors there who are at the New York Times now and other wonderful places. And, you could just pitch stories to them. And then once they liked what you were doing, they asked you to do it on a regular basis.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I wrote for Business Week a couple of times. There were a lot of writing opportunities for people who were prominent bloggers.
Yeah, yeah, and it was really easy to get earned media based on some angle for the internet, because nobody knew anything about it. So if you knew a little bit about it,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And everybody knew each other, like all of us who were blogging,
right.
I was posting 10 times a day at the beginning,
Wow.
but all of us who knew each other, who were doing the same thing, we all started to know each other. We started to meet each other, for get together for dinners and things like that. Those of us in New York, and sometimes people would even fly in, and there got to be conventions for stuff like that. But at the beginning, it was very open. Now it's almost impossible for a lone blogger to make a name for themselves because there are blogs with huge staffs that post 100 times a day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the blogging has kind of changed. I mean, it's podcasting now, or it's video now. So
Video. I believe that video today is what website was in 2000. I believe that companies really need to have a video presence, and I want to be helping them to do that.
So what is looking back? I mean, you and I both can span the pre-internet and then the internet era. When I graduated from college, nobody I knew had an email address. So what's your take on how things have changed or evolved, or
Well, it's become very crowded and very loud, and it is much more difficult for small companies to build their presence. There are literally millions of people who call themselves digital marketers. Um, I don't want to say too much about them, but there are so many better tools now to do the stuff that we do. There are so many better ways to present companies and to help them. And I think that those changes are very positive. One of the things that is not as positive is what's been happening to social media.
Yeah.
And when we both started, it was pre-social media. And at the beginning of it, as you said, when I interviewed you, at the beginning of it, it was really, upbeat and hopeful, and people had fun on it. And it's turned into something where you can plot the overthrow of the government in plain sight, and scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Switching gears a little bit, you're a dancer.
Yeah.
So what does dancing what does dancing have to do with communications, or how does dancing inform communications? Is there a tie?
Oh, you bet there is. I'm a swing dancer, and there's different kinds of swing dance. What I do is called East Coast swing. It's the Lindy Hop, and you're putting yourself. When you dance with someone, it's a communication that is. Um, what is the right word for it? It's a very, I mean, you're communicating through touch, through your hand. You can use one finger to do it with a good dancer, but it's just such a happy, open kind of communication, and I hope for that in my work. Hard to find, I gotta say. The reason I dance is because it's a way to let off steam, and the thing I miss the most in the pandemic is that I can't go dancing 2 or 3
Yeah.
nights a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you do that before the was it 2 or 3 nights a week, regular
For
dancing?
the past like 15 or 20 years, yeah. Because
Yeah.
in New York, you can dance to live music a few nights a week, and if you dance and you're serious about it, you kind of know everybody in the dance community, so you can go out and just always know you're going to have people to dance with who you like to dance with.
Yeah. Yeah. What advice would you give to somebody, a young person coming out of college, or thinking maybe about doing a career in communications, marketing, PR, advertising, digital, whatever? What would be your biggest piece of advice for them?
I still think journalism is the degree to have, because it teaches you uh, how to communicate effectively, and I think that it teaches you enough about research that, I mean, I've hired people with master's degrees who didn't know how to do research. If you're a journalist, you learn how to do research, and I think that you should have a side of digital. You should have a side of radio and TV or something like that, but I still think journalism is the path.
What kind of what I mean, you've obviously a lot of wide experience, a lot of different clients. What types of services are you offering now, or is it the whole panoply of all the stuff that you've done in your past?
To a certain degree, yes, it is. I mean, largely what I do now is content and strategy, and I am really interested in helping people to expand their video presence and to become visible on YouTube. And I just really feel like that's the new frontier. So that's what I would like to be doing more of. I produce podcasts. But I mean, largely what I do is, is create the content that helps people achieve the visibility that they need to have.
Sure.
And now I hire PR people.
Full circle, huh?
Yeah.
What do you collect anything?
Oh, you bet I do. I collect cows.
Cows.
I have cow things. I'm looking for a cow.
New York is a
here-
little having a place in New York is a little small for collecting animals like cows.
I have a 3-foot tall cow in the kitchen, actually. I have cows all over the place. I actually had to put a lot of my cow collection in storage when I moved back to the city because there was no room for it. But yeah, you name it, I got a cow in the shape of it.
What's the fascination with cows?
Such gentle, beautiful, peaceful creatures. And that's why I don't eat them.
I was just going to say they're also delicious.
No, I do not eat animals I've met. No, there's something just so meditative about hanging out with cows. You know,
Well, that begs the question then, have you hung out with cows?
I have actually spent time photographing cows,
Okay.
and I had the good fortune when I was in Maine at the Maine Photographic Workshop to see two cows who were standing in such a way that it looked like it was a two-headed cow. And I have done several prints of those and given them to people. And, that was not done in Photoshop, that was done in the camera.
Wow.
And yeah, it was just a lucky shot. It was like just when I said, oh, I'm not going to be able to find anything to photograph today. And there it was.
I have a good friend who paints cows. She has a zillion paintings that she's done of cows. They're beautiful. They're
Would love to see them.
yeah. Well, I will send them along your way. Is there something? Let's close this out. Is there a question that I should have asked that I haven't asked, or a question that you want me to ask, or an answer that you want to give that I haven't prompted?
Good question. Okay. Well, I guess that what I would like people to know is that I have this side project that's called Fun Walkers, and Fun Walkers are funny license plates for mobility devices. And I am in the process of pivoting that to institutional sales because I believe they can be really good promotional devices for, rehab places, for senior communities, for all sorts of places. And so I'm hoping that that is my next stage of business, is to be able to develop that into something big.
Cool, cool. So how do people get a hold of you, Bill?
Best way is bl@whatsnextonline.com.
Easy peasy. Thank you for taking the time to interview. And next week we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming. But thanks, BL.
Thank you, Dave. That was fun.
Yeah.